Without further ado, we have from the Paranormal franchise, Katie Featherston, and from Paranormal 2 and 3, Sprague Grayden. You are here, I believe,
right.
and then I believe Sprague is right next to you.
All right.
One of those. Cool. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being at Sinister Creature Con. Just very excited to get to talk to either one of you. I know all of this wonderful group is as well. I think we need to just start with how in the world, in this day and age, did a small little film like this suddenly show up at your doorstep, and did you even think that it could go as far as it did?
I never thought it would. I mean, everyone always hopes, right? But we never really foresaw what would happen. I was my first year out in LA, and I got the audition off of LA Casting. I had no reps, no manager, no anything, and found the audition, and I could tell it was special. I could tell the director was like very serious about what he was doing, and it seemed fun, and so I auditioned, and then met Mika at the callback, and then, a month or two later, we filmed for a week in San Diego, and 3 years later, it kind of became a big thing.
Exploded.
It's like the most concise way I've ever said that whole thing. Like a 3-year arduous process, but yeah, it was crazy.
And then you come in Paranormal 2, correct?
Yes, and it was a very different process. I auditioned for something with my agent, my manager, and I'd already been out in LA a bit because the show had been, your movie had been kind of a massive hit by that point when they started putting together Paranormal 2.
It was like right after the first one came out, they were like, oh, we're going to do a sequel, and then I don't know when they started casting, but it was...
I'd been in LA for 8 years as an actress, a working actress. I'm that girl in the grocery store that you look at and go, do I know you? Did you date my cousin? It's like, no, I was just crying on everything last night. What's up? And so I got this really rad audition, and I wasn't allowed to know what it was for. My team sent it to me and said, I think there's 3 or 4 movies we think it might be. And by the way, you're going to improv the entire time. Which, as a scripted actress, is not necessarily my forte. It was very nerve-wracking. And then when I got to about I don't know when I met you, the second or third callback was when I met Katie, and I was like, oh, now I know what it is. And I got very excited, and also, you're just so sweet. It was very welcoming. So that was how I got there.
Now, you mentioned in the audition process there was improv, and I had read that there was a lot of improv in the first one. Did that continue throughout the franchise for both of you, or was that just solely in the first couple of projects, or am I misreading that there was less improv than what I thought?
I mean, my experience, the first one was absolutely 100% improvised. Oren had a very clear idea about what he wanted, but there was no dialogue ever written. There wasn't even an ending to the movie at the beginning of the week. We figured it out as we went along. So we really did it very collaboratively, and it was all improvised. And then, in my experience, every sequel that happened after was still rooted in improvisation. Mm-hmm. But when Paramount takes over a movie, it becomes a bigger thing, and there's more cooks in the kitchen, and so you have to have some sort of structure to follow so that things get done. And so there was an idea that was outlined and maybe some sides that were written, but then we were still really allowed to make it our own in order to really honor the kind of movie we were making.
Yeah, I think they were creating, with 2, what was really fascinating was they were trying to remake that indie movie feel within a studio structure. So it was a fascinating experiment to be a part of, because every day you'd come to work at 7 a.m. and they would say, okay, we have 20 pages written, but we're probably not going to do any of them. We're probably going to do something totally different. Are you ready to get in a bikini and go to a barbecue? Sure, why not? So it was a really cool thing. You had to really be on your toes, and we were lucky because most of the cast was based in comedy. Molly Ephraim's gone on to be on Last Man Standing for many years, and Brian was a comedian. I am not a comedian, so they helped me a lot. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a great way to branch out from the kind of structured, scripted work that I'm usually in.
Yeah. Now, Katie, you mentioned the ending that you, at the beginning of the day for the first one, you never knew the ending. And famously, we all know the ending changed after it first showed up. I know that the ending would directly affect whether or not the franchise continued. Of those two endings, which one, as an actor, which one did you latch on more to? Which one did you? I mean, everybody knows the two endings, correct? Yeah. Good. I don't have to describe in great detail. Thank you, Freddie.
Well, there was actually 3 endings. There's a third secret one that some people know about. But the first ending, the one that's on the original version of the movie, the 3 of us came up with at a California pizza kitchen. We were having lunch like on a break one day, and we were talking about, because Oren had ideas, but we weren't exactly sure how we were going to do it, and we kind of came up with the ending together. And so that was the first one. And then there was, I think, some ending where I slit my throat or something.
Yes.
I don't remember why we did that one. Maybe it was just an alternate. And then there was the Steven Spielberg ending where he was like, don't kill the girl, like, here are some ideas. And then we went back later and filmed those. I mean, I think the ending that ended up in theaters is the most effective, and I am certainly grateful that I didn't die. So big thanks to Steven Spielberg if he's watching this. So I understand why we used it, and I 100% support it because it was super effective. But I also have a soft spot in my heart for the one with the police, which I think if this was real life is the one that would really maybe happen. You know, like the police come in and stuff gets bad. So I like both of them. It's hard for me to choose, guys. They're like my little children.
The one that Spielberg did help with, though, at least did continue on the franchise.
Yeah.
So that way we got you as well. Now, I've asked this to people who have been in sequels in the past. How was it for you when you already have for lack of a better term, a family environment in the film? How was it for you coming in as the new family member?
Well, I actually have kind of a lot of experience of that. I've been on a lot of shows where I'm in like season 7 and I come in and it is already a family. So it really depends on the project and the kind of family you're going into, just like anything in your life. Luckily, this family was very welcome and opening, and they were very welcoming and open, and they were very, very excited to continue and to see what would happen in 2 and 3. I think Oren and Katie were really, really excited about new characters and just seeing where it could go.
Seeing the family grow and the story grow.
Yeah, so it was very welcoming, and they invited us to have a vocal presence and to tell things about our character and to come up with ideas. So it was really cool.
Now, the marketing for the first one was a prime example of somebody taking the idea of where the world's at with social media and with email campaigns and viral video campaigns and things like that, and taking it from a movie that, if I remember correctly, was only in a couple of dozen theaters to nationwide in that campaign. As an actor who, you finished the film at this point, how was your reaction to watching that campaign happening in front of you?
Oh, I mean, I think Paramount and everybody in the marketing department, I think they were brilliant. I mean, I think they were kind of unsure what to do with our movie. Like, it had done well in festivals, and they would do a screening with audiences, and it would perform really well in the screening, but they were very kind of unsure about how to, like, if they sent this out to the whole world, would it be worth it? And so they started off with the college towns, and then they had the trailers, and they did the Demand It. And truly, guys, like, if anybody in this room demanded it, it really is what made the movie come out wide, because they were literally, like, counting the signatures, and if it hadn't had a good response, that would have been it. So for me as an actress, we filmed the movie 3 years prior to that, and so I'm sitting here watching this thing unfold, and it was kind of like, I just have to let go. This is going to happen the way it's going to happen, and it was so magical and awesome to kind of watch it just kind of explode, and so there was never a moment where I was like, oh, this is going to be a big thing. It was sort of like I was always in the moment watching it get bigger and bigger and going, wow, oh wow, I'm so grateful. It was really cool.
Did anybody here hit the demand button on one of those first ads?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I remember vividly seeing the first trailer I ever saw for Paranormal Activity had no scenes from the movie. It was all audience reaction and blacklight just saying, do you want to see what they're reacting to? Hit demand and watch it in your area.
Yeah.
And I thought that was one of the most brilliant things I'd ever seen, and it made me need to see the movie.
And Oren really was so adamant about not putting all the good scenes, all the scary stuff in the trailer. He was like, there's not much to put in a trailer, and if you put the stuff in the trailer that's going to scare people, there's not going to be a movie. He's like, please, please, please don't. And then so they thought outside the box, and I just think they're all geniuses, so it was great.
So, speaking of scary scenes throughout the franchise, is there something that latches on, especially with having the improv, the freedom to improv, not knowing possibly what you're going into until you get there? Is there moments that stood out for you that as a person, not as an actor, as a person, you went, okay, I don't know about this situation?
Oh, yeah.
Was anything stood out from that?
You go first.
I mean, I don't. You seem like you've got a good answer.
I got set up. Okay, so, hi.
Welcome.
The counters, the cupboards?
Yes.
Okay, so the day of the cupboards, I was told, and I was going in every day and working with the crew, and we were very intimate with the crew because one of the coolest things about this movie and being a part of it was that it wasn't mostly green screen. All the special effects were done by the crew. So the crew had set up the cupboard explosion, and they sat me down like, listen, Sprague, we'd already been shooting for, a month or something. We were all buddies. And they're like, this is like, listen, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to drink your tea. One little firelight's going to come on in the oven, and this cupboard right here is going to blow. This one cupboard, Sprague. This cupboard right here is gonna blow. Okay, no problem. So what you see in the movie is my actual literal reaction. It's the first take. There aren't any other takes. It's the first take of me being like, oh my God! Because I had no idea that the entire kitchen was going to explode. And I will never, ever forget that day.
never
Ever.
not be traumatized.
I totally peed in my pants. It happened. I was like so freaked out. I was so
funny.
scared.
I didn't know that. That's so funny.
Yeah,
You just don't trust crew anymore.
I do. Well, crews and writers and producers, but we really shouldn't trust them anyway. Not if they need a great reaction. So.
Man, we did not have a big crew or a crew really. I mean, we had a few people that helped on certain nights, but for the most part, it was just the three of us in the first one. So there wasn't, and also we didn't have anything big like that, in the first one. So there wasn't really. We didn't really. I think on the very first day, Oren was like, sleep and there'll be a noise. But then he quickly realized that, we can be believable in the moment even if we know it's coming. And so he just, we always kind of like worked on it together and knew. But I have to say that in the first movie, the dragging down the hall scene, I was like, Oren, what if I don't go down the hall? What if I go down the stairs? And he was like, Katie, I'm not gonna let you get dragged down the stairs. I don't have the insurance. Like, you're gonna hurt yourself. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. I'll do it. And he's like, no, you are. I'm not. I refuse. And I was like, okay. And then the second movie came, you have to go down the stairs. And I was like, oh man,
Better insurance.
so cool.
The awesome stunt woman Helen got to go down the stairs.
Yeah. I was like on it, but
So in the first one, Katie, one of the things that strikes me, and I'm sure I've seen it in reviews, I'm sure you've been told this before, is the honesty between you and Mika. It's to know that that's improv is even more impressive because there was definitely a relationship there. Mm-hmm. I joke with my wife quite often that if suddenly there was a camera in my house that I needed to get ghosts, I'd be trying to get your clothes off the entire time, which is very honest in that movie, and your reaction to it is the perfect honest reaction. Oh, which is what any wife would do in that situation. So there's this great honesty that continues from the first moment we see the two of you throughout. So for a fan of that, when it came to the second one, I'm like, there's no way they're going to capture this being a real family. But then, with casting and having that story take place, continuing on to the third, it really did become just as honest. Mm. Was there a lot of prep work between the two of you? Was there a lot of conversations throughout? What was the rehearsal process? Or was there a rehearsal process?
There was some between us. I remember there was some.
Was there?
Well, because when...
Sorry,
we're just give us a sec. We're
talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, we met. We had the callbacks and everything.
We met, and during the callbacks, they had this moment which I remember because I was totally freaked out, which is probably why you don't remember as much because you probably weren't. But I was freaked out, and they had us sit down in that living room, the like front living room with like the big huge ceiling, and chat for a while. And they kind of left us alone, and we kind of came up with a family history.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and so we got to work with that, which was really great. And then Molly Ephraim came from a lot of theater, and so did Brian. So, you know, Brian's from Chicago and Molly came from New York. And then I come from theater as well, from New York. And so we all kind of approached our characters in that regard. We spent a lot of time together, the three of us outside. Yeah, and then we improv'd history for the three of us together. That was our rehearsal process.
I mean, because there's nothing, when you're evolving the script and changing things and trying things, there's not a lot to rehearse because you don't have a working script.
Yeah.
You know, that's set in stone at
There
least.
is no, there's no rehearsal like
It's
that.
like, record the rehearsal. If it's great, use it. And if not, keep moving. Yeah.
Now, you keep bringing up theater background for you. What was your background before? You said you came into LA and there was an audition and you went forward for it.
I mean, I've been acting my whole life, and I did it in high school, and I went to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, and studied theater there, and got a BFA, and then moved to LA, and my very first year auditioned for Paranormal.
I've noticed this in conversations at panels with lots of people who have been in the horror industry, an ongoing link that I see on the characters, on the actors that really resonate with people is the fact that they have a theater background. That it wasn't just we were film people all the way through. It seems to be that a lot of the people, and some of the actors that are here at this con in particular, all had strong theater backgrounds. Do you feel that helped both of you?
I mean, it certainly helped. It certainly helped me in all the movies, but especially in the first one, of just knowing how to collaborate, knowing how to like have my hands in everything and be a part of a team. Because oftentimes as an actor in film, you have a job and it's show up, find your light, smile, say the lines, and then get out of the way. And that's no judgment for that. That's great too. But in theater, you're the crew, you're everything. You're always doing all of it. And so for me, it was like such a joy to come into a filming experience and realize like, oh, I'm not just an actor here. I get to be kind of a producer and kind of a director and kind of a writer and kind of a crew person, and kind of I've got to feed these two guys who I'm filming with because they're not cooking, so somebody's going to do it. You know, there was like, you know, so that was that sort of family community aspect of it was really helpful for me.
I also think there's something very special about these movies in particular. I think, you know, Blair Witch kind of started it, but I really think that Paranormal took it in a different direction, and which is one of the reasons I think I was even brought in to audition, because I'm not necessarily the natural horror girl. You know, all due respect, but my boobs aren't big enough, and I play the girl next door. It's what I do. And these movies, because they had such a good theater background in the first one, and because of the tone that you guys created, they're really based in character. Yeah. And so when the few scares happen, you're so involved in the characters that you're so much more concerned for the scare. I mean, I know with our movie, the whole time everyone's like, that nothing better happen to that dog. Nothing better happen to that dog, man. Yep. And it's because you're so invested in the kids and Molly and the family itself. And so I do think, and I also think, you know, I do a lot of kind of intense drama stuff where people die or get murdered or I die or something. And I think when you do such high intense circumstance portrayals, you still want a connection for your audience, an emotional connection, so that, you know, they have that experience as well. And so you have to, you know, have a craft of some sort. Anyway, it's just seemed to have worked.
I like that you brought up the comparison to Blair Witch, because quite often the first Paranormal and the first Blair Witch gets combined.
They are different, though.
Quite often. They're very different, but they do have that same skeletal structure as far as we're going to see a real event take place is basically what we're trying to. And a lot of films attempted that in between and attempted it after, and a majority of them failed drastically. What is it that you feel where along the way Blair Witch sets up this idea, and then we have how many years between Blair Witch and the first Paranormal? that suddenly, okay, we're going to try this same type of thing again, and where at that point you already had fans of horror movies going, we don't ever want another one of these found footage again, but then your franchise makes it, we want this.
Yeah.
What is it that you feel was the capturing moment? What was it that you got it?
The only thing I can say to that is Oren and Mika and I were really committed to not cutting any corners. So if we filmed a scene and we couldn't figure out why we had the camera on, we just didn't do that scene. Or we had to figure out why don't they leave the house. We had to figure out all of these things so that there wasn't any like, oh, we won't worry about that part. Well, anything that would take away from the realism of what we were doing. And I mean, we would sit and then go, well, what about this? No, that's not good enough. Or what about this? Well, and we would just sit there and brainstorm until we just to our very best could find the most believable situation and then really commit to it. So I don't know if that's it, but that's all I can really.
It's so interesting because I was going to say it's respect for audience.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you're describing.
Yeah.
Because for me, I came into this as a fan, not as somebody who was creating it like they were, And watching the first one, I just remember thinking, wow, they know I'm intelligent. Because I'm a sci-fi geek. I have a confession. I'm sorry. I'm not a horror geek. I'm a sci-fi geek. I'm so sorry.
We have
but
crossover. It's
Is that okay?
Her
Is
shirt's
that
pretty
cool?
great.
You're okay,
Yeah.
sci-fi geeks? Any of them? Good. See? You've got company.
I'm wearing a Jana Solo t-shirt. Just saying. Okay. So it's like old school. You have to read the books. Anyway, but so one of my favorite things about sci-fi is the mythology, and when I'm watching it and I know that a producer or a writer knows I'm intelligent enough that they give me the real backstory. And that's one of the things I think about your movie and Blair Witch, is that both of them, they both expected the audience to be horror fans, to truly understand, to know what the shot should be like, to know what the easy plot out was. And instead, you didn't take the easy out.
Yeah.
And you made a great movie, and that's, respect for audience.
That's
a great answer.
Wonderful. I'd like to open it up for some questions. Anybody have some questions for, yes?
This is for Katie. When the first movie blew up at the box office, were you ever like, I want a piece of that? Or were you ever allowed a piece of that?
Well, Oren was really good to us, and so we had an agreement that we'd written 3 years before, that he honored. So, I never had to spend a lot of time worrying about that. Oren's an unfailingly generous human being, and honorable, and so much integrity, and there should be a million more Oren Pellys in the world.
Thought I saw a hand. Oh, there we go.
Katie, were you a horror fan before you started making the movie?
Yeah. I guess my favorite horror film growing up, here's the funny thing, is I was always in search for the movie that would scare me while I was watching it, but then would also scare me when I went home, and it would also scare me the next day, and then I feel like part of me ended up just being in that movie. But my favorite was Candyman. I loved that.
Oh.
And Tony Todd recently started following me on social media, and I kind of freaked out, y'all. I geeked out, and I sent my best friend, I would always make her watch Candyman with me, and she hated scary movies, and I snapshotted it, or screenshotted it and sent it to her, and I was like, Tony Todd, and she was like, don't even send that to me, don't do that. So, yeah, I've always been a fan.
I love that. That's so great.
That is wonderful. I love that. Do we have any more questions, Paranormal Activity?
I was just wondering if any of you had any real paranormal activity experiences.
I always get this. I feel like I don't know. No, I haven't. I have had friends who have, and I 100% believe in all sorts of things that I can't see or prove. So I know it's out there. I certainly believe in lots of stuff, but I haven't ever experienced something personally where I've been like, uh-oh, what's going on? So, what about you?
I have, though mine's kind of personal and might sound a little deep. No, it's okay. I'll tell you. It happened to me a long time ago. I mean, my brother passed away when I was 21, and he was 18. It's on Wikipedia. It's out there. But when I brought my now husband home to my small town I grew up in, which is like 5,000 people, we went to where my brother's buried in his tombstone, and I was like, I need you just to go over there. And like, I just need you to introduce yourself to him. And if it's insane and stupid, just get back in the car or whatever. And my husband is not someone who believes in anything except for Vulcans. And
If you're gonna
so,
believe in one thing.
right,
That's the thing.
right. So he went and he sat at that tombstone, my brother's tombstone, for, it was like 20 minutes. It was really weird. And I was in the car, and he came back, sat in the car, and I said, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And then that night at my parents' house, he had a nightmare. Well, he woke up, and I was like, are you having a nightmare? He said, no, I'm not. I don't know what it is. And he said my brother had come to him in the dream, and he started talking about things that I'm not going to say exactly, but I will say that they were very private and things that my husband didn't know about things in my family.
That's pretty impressive.
And my brother was just let him know, like,
Take care of my
okay,
sister.
man, you're cool. It's cool, but I'm gonna scare you late at night.
That's my
if you
job
screw up.
as a little brother.
Yeah. So that's my personal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
like that.
I have a question.
Red shirt, yes.
Actually, Christian. The whole tone of the film, all the films are like really dark, you know. They have that tone, but you know, I kind of saw that there was a lot of the filmmakers. You know this, but the filmmakers kind of brought in claws with the chandelier, you know, the shadow of the claws, you know, with the demon, you know. So I just wanted to know from you guys if you guys knew anything about what they were doing on the set, or were you in your character in itself, or you know,
You mean with like scares and
with
things?
scares and also with shadows, you know.
Some of the smaller after effects
Yeah.
that were added to enhance scenes.
Yeah.
Did you
I
know
mean-
that were coming?
No, I mean a lot of the stuff on the first one, you know, we figured out as we went, and so, for instance, there's a shadow that goes across the door, you know. I think Oren saw it later and was like, oh, I can digitally put it in, and that would be a cool thing for them to notice, and so it was sort of happened with some fluidity. So you know, some of the stuff we knew, and then some of the stuff was stuff we kind of discovered as we went.
Because
You know.
it kind of looked like you guys were ad-libbing as you were going along.
Oh,
to do it,
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and that's good, you know. It's good, but that kind of film, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of atmosphere of that film.
Yeah.
And I did like that, you know.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
I know we had a question right here in the front.
Hi, this question is for Sprague.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the TV show 24.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I was wondering if you can tell us some experience.
Oh.
Working
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Kiefer.
Working with Kiefer. I love Kiefer. I'm a big fan of the Kiefer Club. I was supposed to be on that show for 2 episodes.
Oh,
And Kiefer was an instrumental part of keeping me on that show. If you work with Kiefer and you show up and you're dedicated to your character and you're prepared and you're ready to rock and roll, he'll keep you on. He'll reward that and make sure the producers reward it over and over and over again. If you show up unprepared, you will get a bullet in your head. It doesn't matter who you are. It will happen. So I love Kiefer. Also, though, I actually ended up kind of marrying into the 24 family. So on a personal level, you know, he's family. So, but and I don't know. What else do I want to know? I married John Cassar's kid. So I have a 24 baby.
That's great.
I know we had another question here.
Going back to the special effects, like I always think of the ballooning sheet and stuff like that. You said a lot of the effects were practical, but was there anything where you had to kind of suspend belief and your disbelief and just sort of pretend something was there that wasn't?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah. But that's a job, right? And it just depends as an actor how you handle that. Like for me personally, I do a lot of, if when I drop into a scene, if I am not feeling 100% real and in the moment, which is basically the same feeling between being super comfortable with your favorite people and being at Thanksgiving. So like, if you feel like you're at Thanksgiving, you're not real and you're not in the moment. If you feel like you're with your best friends, okay, you're in it, you know? I do a lot of imagination work with scary stuff when I need to do it. Like I'll imagine like spiders going up my, like everything like that. I'll do a lot of as ifs. Because imagining a demon itself isn't going to do it for me. other things do it for me, but the stuff with the kid just killed me. I mean, it didn't matter what they say was going to happen. It was like, and they took great care of the kids, but it was, that stuff was, I didn't take any extra imagination work at all. That was just terrifying. It was really scary.
Metallica?
Yes, for both of you, Bert, which one of the 3 endings do you like most?
Oh, we asked that earlier before you came in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ending that's in theaters, the one where where my character doesn't die, is the most effective, and I'm glad that I don't die. But I also have a soft place in my heart for the one that we came up with so many years ago, or the police and everything. So I'm glad we used the one we did, though.
I'm with her. I've only seen the first one in theaters, so I love that ending. But I didn't watch it till I was on my 3rd callback for the movie, and then I had a nightmare. I ate my husband. So. That ending worked great for me. So.
There you go. Now that brings me to how often have you've obviously seen the film, both of you. Have you seen the entire franchise? Both of you continue to watch. Have you seen it since?
I saw 3 in a movie theater, and the guy next to me, this is all real. Okay, so I went to it with my now husband and a couple friends, and we sat in the movie theater, and this guy next to me looks over at me, and he's like, hey man, did you hear, like, the girl from the second one? She really died. And I was like, she did? And I was like, I'm just going to totally go with this, man. And I was like, she did really? He's like, yeah, totally. He's like, yeah, I think she really lived. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know where she lived. I was like, oh, yeah. And we just kept talking about. And then the movie started, and I think in 3, we show up kind of like half an hour in or so.
Yeah. Some point
in the beginning. And he looked over at me, and he's like, and I was like,
If only you could just vanish at that moment.
And he was
She died.
It was pretty great.
Right now, some stone guy in LA is sitting there going, man, I saw this movie. I was talking to a ghost for like a half hour before. It was so weird.
That's so funny. I've seen the first one so many times in that 3-year period as we were editing and whatever, and I've seen the rest of them at least once or twice. Some, in theaters, and not much after that. It's sort of like, when you're in it, it's like watching a memory or something like that. So I don't ever like pop them in for entertainment, but
Yeah.
I've certainly enjoyed them all.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so a lot of the actors that I've met kind of came out from the indie scene, and that's kind of where this found footage sort of started.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself still interested in doing that sort of thing? Like, I see big names sometimes. I've been at festivals and see big names in like little tiny 30-minute shorts.
Oh.
Because they knew people and they grew up with them, and that's how.
You mean specifically horror films or any kind of indie
Well,
film?
just, you keep in touch, you make
Yeah.
family. It's like,
Yeah.
Somebody comes to you and says, hey, I got a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Are you still into that?
I-
Are you more into the...
No, I love indie film. I mean, that's really, not that I would turn down a big Hollywood blockbuster. I would totally do it. But indie film is like, I've been making a lot of my own projects lately, short films. I'm developing a feature, with that same sort of, kind of summer camp mentality of we're all just going to kind of dive in and do it together. And do you remember Ryan Layson? He was on the crew.
Yeah.
Ryan Layson's a good friend of mine who started, he was like one of the, not on the crew, but he was, one of the, I forget his title, but he was there every day for PA2 and 3 and I think 4. And now he is writing and directing, and he did a movie called The Dust Storm that I saw recently. It was beautiful. And so it's so cool to see people you work with like continuing to move and grow. And so he and I every once in a while have like powwow happy hours, and I'll be like, okay, this is where I am with my feature. What do I need to do now? And he'll help me, and we'll talk about stuff. So it's definitely where my heart is. Yeah.
We have just a couple minutes real quick before to wrap things up. So I do want to talk, since we're talking about other projects that you'd like to be moving forward with, I want to talk about what you guys are doing now. What are you working on? I know you had last year Solace for the Unloved. Is that
That's a web series that
Yes.
I
You starred and directed, correct?
and produced it. Yeah,
Oh,
Rad, dude.
a friend of mine wrote it, and it was just super, super fun. It was, it didn't take long to film really, but it was really fun. It's about a woman in her early 30s whose life's falling apart, but she's trying valiantly to keep it all together. And it's kind of a darkly comedic, which I really enjoy. And a short film and some music and the feature. So
What's the feature that you're working on now? You said you're working on something now.
it is. I'm developing a feature that's we're going to film in Austin, Texas. It's very female driven, and it's very timely. I think it's important to have all people, but certainly women, like really shining nowadays. And so I'm really excited about it. It's a dramedy, so it'll hopefully make you laugh and then get you at the end. So anyway, if anybody wants to find out about that stuff, you can go to katiefeatherston.com, and then you'll see my little Tex Love Films icon. You can click and check it all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Sprague, I also know that you have a project that you're working on now or just finished?
I just finished my part of it literally like a week ago, but they're still shooting. I'm in Dirty John, which is coming up on Bravo. Are you excited?
I watched that podcast. That podcast,
yes.
I lost my mind.
I don't know if you're into true crime podcasts, anybody out here, but Dirty John was an LA Times true crime podcast. And I am playing a woman named Tanya. I'm playing his ex-wife.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so she's a real person, and she lives in Atlanta, and I've gotten to chat with her like 3 or 4 times, which has been pretty incredible, and I'm really excited. So that'll start November 20th. Oh, and I kiss Eric Bana, which is exciting too. So that starts November 25th on Bravo, and it's Eric Bana and Connie Britton and a bunch of other fabulous people, and me, little old me. But I'm really proud of it, and if you tune in, that would be great.
Wonderful. While we've got it, if everybody can give an amazing set of applause for Katie Featherston, Sprague Grayden. I'm nobody. But I thank you very much for Sinister Creature Con, and everybody here. I have one homework assignment for you. Soon as we leave here, they have tables. They have merch at that tables. They have autographs at that tables.
We have hugs.
Go see
hugs
them.
at our
They have
table. We
hugs
have
at their
hugs at our
tables.
tables.
See? Go to their tables. The more you support them at their tables, the more they can come to cons like this, the more you can hear and ask questions of them. So thank them by going to their tables and spending your money. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. You're doing great.
I'd love to get a photo with both of you guys
Sure.
before.